What is up, everybody? How you doing out there? In this video, I'm going to show you how to make tamagoyaki. It's only a few little things that you kind of have to know or do in order not to fail. So the first one is good quality eggs. Most of the eggs that we end up buying at the grocery store are kind of low quality, and a low quality egg is going to give you a low quality product, right? So try to buy something that is organic and it is cage free, right? Something that is fresh, nothing that's too old. Just try to get the best quality eggs as you can. If you can get some eggs straight from Japan, their yolk is a more orange color, and it does have a tendency to mix a lot better with the white, and we want that. That's desirable. So anyway, let's go ahead and put a couple of eggs in here. There's a few different ways that you can do this. One is just straight up egg, right? And then another way is if you start putting things in it like dashi. Typically speaking, they'll put a little bit of sugar in it. So we'll put a little bit of sugar in it. As far as I'm concerned, there's no real reason to put a lot. Second is, this is something that I make. This is kombu salt. So this is where you end up taking kombu and a dried shiitake, and then you put it in a coffee grinder. Grind it up until it's like a powder or a dust, and then you end up putting your Himalayan sea salt inside there, grind it up until it's all like a dust. And it's basically like, like dust, like very, 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 very fine sand. And this adds a lot of extra flavor to whatever you're cooking. It'll have a hint of almost like ramen noodle smell. But anyway, now what we want to do is mix this up. Now traditionally, people will often mix an egg up and it'll look like that. And you'll see that the white and the yolk really are not, I guess you could say, emulsified. So we're going to try to get this to be emulsified. That's closer. That's closer, but I want it to be a little bit more. That's close enough for government work. Okay, so they'll usually have a square pan like this. Well, it's not really square, but a rectangular pan or a square pan. This one I ended up getting at the local Japanese store that's here in town. And what we want to do is put a little bit of oil in it, but not too much. And we're going to turn the stove on to about, say, medium. Okay, I'm going to be doing everything over here instead of over the stove. So I'm going to be pulling it so you can see what I'm doing. So here's a little bit of olive oil I'm going to pour inside here. You can use canola or anything. And we want to spread this all over the place. Because this is cold, it's going to be thick like this. Okay, so if we put this on the stove, it'll become really watery and it'll spread more. We pour the excess out. Now, if you are not good with chopsticks, I recommend using this to turn it over. This will save you a lot of headache. Just a normal silicone spatula. So that has been heated up on the stove, and you see that now it's just going around just like water. All right, so we can take this, and then the excess oil we can pour out, because we're not trying to have an oily egg. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on the heat. And this egg, we're going to be putting this in increments and in thin amounts. Okay. So the very first one, we're going to take this, we're going to pour, and then we're going to move this around the pan until it ends up basically looking like one flat piece of egg. Okay, let me put this back on the stove. It'll begin to look like this. Okay, now right now, even though it doesn't look like it's done, what we want to do is we want to kind of push down the sides of this, and here from the front, grab it and give it a gentle fold over, and we're going to continue that gentle fold over. Okay. Now the reason why we're doing it before it's completely cooked is so that way it will continue cooking and it'll make it look like one solid piece by the time everything is said and done. Okay, so we're going to take this and move it a little bit. Okay. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to put this back on the stove and I'm going to let it heat up a little bit. Just like before, what we're going to do is we're going to take some egg, we're going to pour it in here, and you don't want to put too much in at a time, but as soon as that goes in, you're going to lift the egg up and allow that egg to get underneath it. Okay, now this is going to go back on the stove here. Now, just like before, we're going to roll it from the rear this time. And if it breaks early on, it's okay. But we want to not have it completely cooked all the way through, so that way it kind of glues itself to the roll. Okay. In this particular case, we're just going to kind of push that back a little bit so we can get that roll in there. From here, we can grab this and move it backward. Just like that. Okay. Now we're going to take our egg again. We're going to pour. I could probably, you know something, let's just do the rest. I probably could have got 2 out of that, but once again, we're going to lift, boom, put that down, and put this back over to the stove. So now there's a couple of ways that we can kind of finish this off. One of them is after we take it out, we can just set it down on a paper towel, let it cool off for a little bit before we cut into it. It will end up taking the steam away from it. Right? Just like before, we're going to take it and we're going to roll it over on top of itself. Okay. Squish it back here just like that. It's okay if some stuff runs out, that's okay. But we're going to let this set inside the pan just for a minute or so. We're going to flip it back over again, and we're going to push against the pan to kind of create a shape. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking it, I'm sending it down on the edge right there where I know it's still a little wet, and I'm kind of just pushing it to make it hold its shape. Okay. So, like I was saying, we could put the egg right on top of this, let it cool off for a couple minutes, then cut it up and it'll be fine. But one of the things that I think is pretty cool is if you end up having your sushi mat. You take your tamagoyaki like this, and then you kind of roll it just as if it was sushi, okay? And you let it cool in that. And that should, as long as it's not overcooked, it should kind of make shapes on the egg itself. So in this particular case, we have another couple of eggs. But this time I'm going to add a little bit of dashi to it. Okay. There are other things that you can add to this outside of just dashi, but it will give it a little bit more flavor. Once again, you can add different things. We could put our kombu salt inside there. We could add a touch of mirin, touch of soy sauce. If you want to, you could put chives inside there. You can put anything that you want, you know. It's basically just like making an omelet. It's just the technique and how you cook it changes a little bit. This is probably just going to go shh immediately. Okay. put it back on the stove, and we're going to do it the exact same way as the other way. If you start seeing a bunch of bubbles, you can break those. This has been sitting in there for about a minute or so, and now it has like these ribbon looks on it, which I think is kind of cool. And typically you end up cutting in half, half, half. And then this portion, there's nothing wrong with this portion of the egg. I'm gonna eat it. And just like the first one, we're just gently folding this over. Okay. And like I said, you know, if you can do it with chopsticks, more power to you. I cannot. But from here, we can go half, then half. There we go. And then this one, of course, is going to be just like the last one. We're just folding it. We're going to let it sit in there for a second. And we want to use the pan to help us shape this. Okay. During the time that it's still warm, we can shape it almost into anything that we want. Okay. So just keep that in mind. If you want to put it inside some saran wrap really tight to kind of hold its shape, that's good to go. Now technically you could start cutting it right here if you wanted. If we let it set, it'll make it easier to cut, but also it allows the carryover heat to continue cooking what is left inside of the egg that it hasn't quite got there. Because you usually want to do this right around about 85-90% cooked before you start rolling it, so it acts as a glue. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to only go in one direction during the time that I'm cutting this. And I'm not pushing, I'm allowing the weight of the knife to do the cutting. We're basically like that. Hey, experiment, add what you want. If you want to put cheese in there, put cheese. If you want to put green onion, put green onion. Doesn't make a difference. This is your creation. This is your breakfast. So there you go. And until next time, talk to you later.